and welcome back to the reading of the Message of Godhead by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. If you hear some noises like from the construction, that's just literally because we're surrounded by construction day and night, literally day and night, and it's really people are working, so we'll have to adjust. And yes, yesterday was really such a comedy of errors. Maybe that's one of the reasons that I'm not working on the marketing of this podcast much, because I feel like I have some journey to go through to figure out how to go about it in my daily schedule. So, okay, let us just continue with where we left off last time. Okay, page number 61. The eightfold mystic perfections: Anima, the power to become smaller than the smallest; Laghima, the power to become lighter than the lightest; Prapti, the power to grasp whatever one wants; Ishita, the power to create planets; Vashita, the power to control any person; Prakamya, the power to perform wonderful natural feats, and so on, are byproducts of reaching the highest stage in mystic yoga. After attaining one or two of the above perfections, many mystic yogis fall into the trap of mental oscillation. In such a state, the yogi fails to understand the highest perfection, namely pure devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the devotee has no such fear of falling down, for his attention is already fixed in the transcendental service of the Personality of Godhead. Thus, he does not need to enter separately into trance. For the devotee, the mystic perfections seem insignificant due to the ever-increasing freshness of his object of attention, the Personality of Godhead. Jai! A mundaner is surely unable to realize how there can be so much transcendental happiness in the service of the Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna assures us in Bhagavad-gita that there can be no loss for either the mystic yogi or the karma yogi in their attempts to perfect their respective transcendental activities, even if the process is only partially completed. Anything mundane, whether knowledge or wealth, is vanquished along with the annihilation of the material body. But the transcendental work of the karma yogi surpasses the mundane limits of the material body and mind, because it is performed in relation with the transcendental spirit soul. Being thus spiritualized, these activities transcend the limits of material annihilation. Just as the soul is never annihilated, even at the annihilation of the material body or mind, so these spiritualized activities are also never annihilated. Haribol! The Personality of Godhead confirms this in the Bhagavad-gita 6.40, and Thakur Bhaktivinoda explains it in the following manner. Quote, "After all, the human race is divided into two sections. The one is legitimate, and the other is illegitimate. Those who do not care about any laws of life, but simply work on the principle of sense gratification, they are all illegitimate. Illegitimate. They can be civilized or uncivilized, learned or illiterate, powerful or weak, but such outlaws always act like the lower animals. There is no good in them, in spite of all appearances. On the other hand, the legitimate or law-abiding persons may be divided into three transcendental divisions, namely, the lawful workers, the empiric philosophers, and the transcendental devotees. The lawful workers are again divided into two sections, namely, the workers who desire to enjoy the fruits of their work, and the transcendental workers who have no such desires. The worker who desires to enjoy the fruits of his work hankers after transient material happiness. And such a worker is rewarded with worldly or heavenly happiness within the material worlds. But it must be known that all these forms of happiness are temporary. Thus, such a worker cannot attain real happiness, which is permanent and transcendental. This real and transcendental happiness is attained only after liberation from the bondage of material existence. Any action which does not aim at such transcendental happiness is always temporary and baffling." Unquote. So this was all a quote. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explaining it. Okay. When ordinary work aims at such a transcendental objective, this work is called karma yoga. By this process of karma yoga, one gradually attains self-purification, then transcendental knowledge, then perfect meditation, and ultimately transcendental, loving service to the personality of Godhead. Sometimes a mundane worker is misunderstood to be a tapasvi, ascetic, or mahatma, great soul, because of the many austerities he performs to attain his mundane goals. But the rigid austerities undertaken by such mundaners are after all aimed merely at material sense gratification, and therefore these austerities are useless in the transcendental sense. Some of the demons, such as Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, also underwent severe austerities and penances, but they obtained nothing except some temporary objects of sensory pleasure. Therefore, only when one has transcended the limits of sensory pleasure can he be classified as a karma yogi, or a worker for transcendental results. Real goodness lies in the activities of karma yoga, even if one is only in the preliminary stages. Further, karma yogi makes progress life after life, as confirmed in the Bhagavad-gita 6.43. Quote, After rebirth, the karma yogi revives the transcendental sense of service he attained in his last life, and due to his natural attachment, he tries again to perfect his transcendental activities. Unquote. So even if such a transcendentalist slips away from the path of progress, somehow or other he is again given chance for making progress. As confirmed in Bhagavad-gita 6.41, he is allowed to take his next birth either in the family of a bona fide brahmana or in the family of a rich merchant who is devoted to the service of Godhead. But among the transcendentalists, variously classified as karma yogis, dhyana yogis, jnana yogis, hatha yogis, and bhakti yogis, the bhakti yogis are the greatest of all, because, as confirmed in Bhagavad-gita 6.47, they are always absorbed in the thoughts and actions of transcendental loving service to Godhead. Obviously, attainment of transcendental loving service to the personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of all mysticism. This is the purport of the above-mentioned verse. Factually, the mystic path is uniform and one. It is something like a series of stepping stones to the highest goal. By accepting this path of mysticism, one becomes a pilgrim toward spiritual perfection. Karma yoga, or work with transcendental results, is the first stepping stone on this transcendental path. When empiric philosophical deduction and a desire for renunciation are added, progress is made to the second stepping stone, Jnana Yoga. When a definite conception of the supreme ruling principle, the Supreme Lord, is added, and one tries to realize the presence of the Lord in the heart, progress is made to the third stepping stone, Dhyana Yoga. And finally, when one adds to the process of rendering transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one progresses to the ultimate stage, Bhakti Yoga. The mystic path is therefore a transcendental evolution in which all the above stages are part of the gradual process of spiritual development. It is necessary to mention all of the above stages to understand the final stage. Wow, look at that! Many times, like reading this book, many times I came across this thought that Karma Yoga is not as strongly emphasized as it could have been, I'd say. Like for people who can't directly jump to complete surrender, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. But this just confirmed it. Let's read that again. It is necessary to mention all the above stages to understand the final stage. So to understand the Bhakti Yoga, it is necessary to mention Karma Yoga, to mention the Jnana Yoga, to mention the Dhyana Yoga. Wow. Okay. Therefore, one who desires to attain the supreme goal may adopt the systematic mystic path. But one should not stop on the first, second, or third stepping stone. This is also very, very, very important, I'm adding. One must progress all the way to the final step, the perfect stage of transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who reaches an intermediate stage but does not make any substantial progress beyond it, remaining satisfied with that stage of his development, is called by that particular name, such as Karma Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, or Dhyana Yogi. So the conclusion is that the transcendental devotee is the greatest of all mystics. So that means that if you are, for example, a Karma Yogi, and you don't make any substantial progress beyond it to become for the ultimate perfection for Bhakti Yoga, then you're called a Karma Yogi. But if you're a Karma Yogi, but you are making substantial progress to go beyond it, then you're a Bhakti Yogi. Simple. Okay, we're reading the last... Oh, Krishna! Hey, we're finishing the book today. Okay. At this point, it should be noted that progress along the transcendental mystic path is not identical with ordinary material progress. In the material world, one has to pass through a certain stage of development before one can be admitted to the next stage. And there is no alternative to this process. For example, if somebody wants to attain a MA degree, he has to pass so many examinations. There is no alternative. No one can expect to receive a MA degree without having passed the appropriate examination. But on the transcendental mystic path, although there are approved regulations to bring one from the lower stages to the highest stage by a gradual process of devotional service, by the mercy of Godhead, one can receive a transcendental MA degree without having passed any preliminary examinations. Jai. But this extraordinary mercy of Godhead is possible only by means of a confidential relationship with the personality of Godhead. And this confidential relationship with the personality of Godhead is possible only by means of transcendental association with the devotees of the personality of Godhead. Each and every soul has a potent, confidential, eternal relationship with the personality of Godhead. But due to long association with the illusory material energy, every one of us has forgotten that relationship from time immemorial. We are like beggars roaming in the street, although we are all the transcendental sons of the richest personality, the Supreme Lord. Although with a cool head, we could very well understand this fact, we remain unmindful of our supremely rich Father and our relationship with Him. And thus, we go on struggling in many ways to solve our street beggar problems of poverty and hunger, but with no appreciable results. So look at that, Prabhupada is talking about mindfulness, right? Being mindful is such a buzzword these days. So Prabhupada is saying we remain unmindful of our supremely rich Father and our relationship with Him, with the Supreme Lord. Jai. So on the streets we meet many friends who are similarly poverty-stricken. Sometimes those who are a little better off than we are direct us toward some progressive stage of life, but actually we do not derive any happiness from such directions. These people show us the paths of work, knowledge, meditation, mysticism, and various other ways also, but unfortunately none of them is able to give us the happiness for which we are ever hankering. For this reason, Lord Chaitanya advised Sri Rupa Goswami at Dashashwametha Ghat, on the bank of the Ganges at Prayag, that only the most fortunate souls can obtain the seat of devotional service by the mercy of the personality of Godhead and His bona fide representative. We can get the seed of transcendental devotional service from Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead Himself, in His transcendental message of Bhagavad-gita. When we are able to grasp that the genuine message of Sri Krishna in Bhagavad-gita is devotional service to Him, then and only then will we perfectly appreciate the teachings of Bhagavad-gita. Otherwise, we may go on reading Bhagavad-gita life after life, and we may write 1,001 commentaries on it, but all such attempts at understanding Bhagavad-gita will prove futile. The personality of Godhead has explained Himself in Bhagavad-gita. So many common men have written their autobiographies, and the people in general have enthusiastically read and accepted them. But when the personality of Godhead Himself tells about Himself, people do not accept His message as it is. This is their misfortune. Instead of accepting the personality of Godhead's message as it is, the foolish commentaries, the foolish mundane commentators try to drag concocted meanings out of the simple passages of Bhagavad-gita to establish some man-made idea that is never supported by Bhagavad-gita. The foolish commentators cannot ultimately establish their rubbish theories by such artificial dragging. So, at the end, they try to confirm their theories by putting a monkey in place of God. In Bhagavad-gita, it is definitively established that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is also established that our only duty is to render transcendental service to Him. Once we really understand these two facts from the pages of Bhagavad-gita, we can enter into the primary classes of spiritual education. Jai His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We have completed the book called Message of Godhead, and it's interesting, like I was thinking to do a short kind of few words reflections on the book, and the more I read, the more I realized that I'm actually speaking reflections throughout the book. Like if I read something and it really strikes a chord with me and I get some inspiration, I immediately speak it out loud. So in this way, like to have a separate episode for that, or like it for me it's an advantage that I have it recorded, that I can always, like sometimes I used to read something and then it goes like wow, and then you don't make a note of it, and then you just forget it for some time, and then you don't remember it as clearly. I remember one time, who said, was it in Krishna book I read? The concept of vairagya, which is called something, I forgot the name of this kind of vairagya. There is the type of renunciation which is called renunciation at the crematorium. That when you are at the crematorium, then you have this feeling of, this life is like a drop at the leaf of the lotus flower. You have this feeling that, what is this life? We're all gonna die and stuff like that, complete renunciation. But then you go home, take shower, talk to your friends, and then you forget all about that renunciation and realization that we can die at any moment. So similarly, I read somewhere that how would a person live if he would always have this mood that he has while reading Puranas. So, like when you read Puranas, like scriptures, when you read Prabhupada's books, you have this certain mentality. You're saying, yes, this is it. Wow, this is incredible. Wow, this is fantastic. Yes, this is the way I should live. Then you put the book, and then you go back to life, and then sometimes many of these inspiring insights that you've learned just now, you just commit the same mistakes over and over again, which is understandable, because just like we read just now, we've been doing this since time immemorial. So repetition is the mother of learning, and the more we repeat, the more we continue reading, the more we actually read more, and the more we actually discuss, right? Discuss, read, make notes, transcribe, share. Then you actually memorize these numerous, unlimited instructions, and then your life actually gets better. Then you actually live with purpose. Then you actually live with meaningful life. Meaningful and actually full of real happiness, not so-called happiness. Yes, because just like here, Prabhupada is saying that we're all struggling in so many ways to solve our street beggar problems of poverty and hunger. And some of us who are a little better off than we are direct us towards some progressive life, but it doesn't give us happiness, right? Like all of these, like nowadays, everyone is trying to get some education, and this is very, very good because they may come across real knowledge. That's great. But like you look at these educators who are very viral these days, and many of them, they keep saying that, I am living a perfect life, and you can also live perfect life. You can be happy. What are you unhappy about? Your income, your external, your body, just accept it, be satisfied, and be happy. But the thing is that, just like Prabhupada says over here, if they're trying to convince you that even though you don't have money, even though you don't have like the resources that they have, you're supposed to be just happy on its own, because that's just how to be happy. And some people, they buy it and they're like, yes, just be satisfied with whatever it is. Birth, death, old age, disease. Yay! Be happy no matter what. Or just, like work day and night and get some more money. And is that really happiness? So, such a fraud, such a big empty shell of education that is, actually. So, so reading this particular book, I was like that topic with free will really kind of, it actually, I read this book before, I read this book before, but that topic of free will completely kind of like was like turn off my entire vision, because lately, like me and my husband, me and my friends, were discussing this topic somehow, that Krishna's plans, God's plans, what God has in store for me. But like Prabhupada introducing this concept that when you get something because you did something wrong, it's not necessarily that Krishna came and he put this, like as if what? So today actually I was listening to also Prabhupada's class, and he was saying that things will come to us, happiness and distress will come to us according to our destiny, drishti. And it really, as an addition to what we read at that time and what we're reading today, that there is this thing called destiny, based on what we did in the past. And if only we just accept it as it is, and just be Krishna conscious, then everything will be turned around. Then, as Prabhupada said, we are beginning on the path of mystic perfection towards the ultimate spiritual realization and our like real identity of transcendental loving servant of the personality of Godhead. And that means that ultimate pleasure, ultimate happiness, ultimate bliss of devotional service, despite whatever destiny has in store for us. Jai, so thank you so much for coming and supporting our podcast, and it really inspires me, and I hope that it inspires you as well. And I know that you can just read Srila Prabhupada's books on your own. You don't need anybody to record it and deliver it to you into the headphones. And I know that I'm mainly doing it probably for myself, to kind of regulate my own reading. But if you are listening, and if you are also taking advantage and joining our reading circle, we're very glad. Hare Krishna. See you next time, which is like in the next episode, which we're going to record right now also. Haribol.